Welcome to Turtle Tracks Podcast. This is your host, Brian VanHooker, and I'm here with Douglas De Azevedo, an animation director on Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is now on Netflix. Douglas, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
No, I don't, I'm the one saying thanks, man. Thanks very much for inviting me. I've heard some of the other podcasts and looks really cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I spoke with Christopher Yost the other day. I just really was happy. I really like this show, and I love to get into the kind of the weeds of the making of it. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, and I haven't heard the Chris yet, but I listened to the one you guys did with Andrea and Mark.
Okay,
That
cool.
was great.
Yeah, that was a good one, and I think I did maybe one or two other ones from people from the show.
Did you guys
Uh,
get
I'm sorry?
Alan? Alan one?
No, I haven't got a chance to speak to him yet. I would love to, though.
Alan will be awesome. Like super nice guy.
Yeah, I would love to talk to him. He oversaw like the art for the show and the look of the show, right?
Yeah, he's the other executive producers because one
Right.
is Chris, and then the other one is Alan, and then he's directs the whole show.
Before getting into the show itself, I would love to hear about your relationship with the Ninja Turtles. Or were you a fan growing up, and of what version? Tell me about it.
Yeah, I was a big fan when I was a kid. I'm from Brazil,
Okay.
and back then we used to have watch the ones from the 80s, right? When they're like all buff and such. So I was a very big fan of those. Grew up watching them, and then later on I got to watch the 2012, which was a really cool
That show's
uh,
great. Yeah.
the 3D one.
Yeah.
And then I think I got the 2012, the 80s one, and then Rise. And Rise was like insane. The animation on Rise is like super cool, and I was a pretty big fan of their work.
Oh yeah, the way that show was like a beautiful animation. That show just moved. It was great.
Yeah, no, they did an amazing job in putting everything together and then presenting a new version of the Turtles. Like something that we haven't seen at
Oh
all.
yeah.
And they managed to mix a really cool anime-ish style with Western animation,
Hmm.
which is kind of like the best of both worlds sort of thing. So I really like how they handled that show. And honestly, when we got the show, I was like, oh no, we're getting this right after Rise. So it's a very big, big
Sure.
big thing to feel. But I'm happy with how it turned out. So it was scary but nice experience.
So you were watching the show in the original Turtle show in Brazil. Forgive me, I don't know how old you are. Was it during kind of like 90, 91 that time?
Yeah, during the 90s. I am from 88, so I'm 36. I'm not that young.
Okay, so but I mean like I guess my question is like I'm always curious what like here in America like from especially from 1990, 91, 92 like everything was turtles everywhere. I'm
Mhm.
curious what it was like there. Was it as big there? Were like every kid watching it? What was it like there?
Oh yeah, like from the 90s. If you go to Brazil and ask like Ninja Turtle, everyone knows.
Oh,
It
cool.
was really, really big back in Brazil. And I have a lot of friends as well. When they learned that I worked on the show, they're like, "Wait, what? Like you did Turtles? Like that's amazing, man!" Because yeah, it's something that all of my friends grew up watching it. I don't know about nowadays, like the new generation of kids.
Hmm.
If they got any of the new Turtles, they might have gotten like, especially like Rise and the 2012 versions. But the 80s is pretty much from like my time, like when I was a kid. It was pretty big in Brazil.
Oh, very cool. So when you got started on Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, had you already seen Mutant Mayhem or was it before it came out?
It was before it came out. So we got the test to do the test, right? Because we were competing with other studios and such. And then Titmouse gave it to me, so I would be the one directing the test and see, if we could get the show and such. And we saw only trailers of the Mayhem by that time.
Only the what? I'm sorry.
Trailers, like movie trailer.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And and that was the only kind of information we had at that point. Be like, okay, let's watch the trailer and then see if we can kind of like get a vibe of what the show is and trying to implement that to our test. But it was really cool, like because the trailer kind of gave us a really good idea of like how they were handling the timing of the characters, how the look of them were as well. So it was pretty nice.
Now, what did you guys? So you're at Titmouse, and other studios were also competing to do the show, right? What did you have to do to kind of prove that you guys were the right house for this?
Our best. You're
You
like,
know what I mean? Like, did
hey,
you have to create segments of animation? What did you have to do to?
yeah, we usually animate like sequences.
Okay.
We get as from the clients, we get like, for example, Nickelodeon send us the amount of like they want for the test. At that point, I think ours was like 30 seconds, and then it was a few different scenes, right? And then we would get the designs, and then start developing how the character should move. But it's a test, right? So you don't have any reference of how things are gonna look like. So
Mhm.
that's when we try to play with things. We're like, oh, what if we do this, and then what if we add this and add that, and then you kind of start to developing the look of how animation will be from that point on.
Now, was the look of the show already set by that point?
No, no. I think we're still figuring out how everything would gonna look like. So
Okay.
we started working on this, and then once we got the show, and then Andrea came in with Nickelodeon's team, and then they're okay. That's how the designs are gonna be like, and then we kind of like got like a good understanding of how the show would be like visually speaking.
Okay.
Um, because the test is like it's still test, right? It's still testing phase and seeing what works and what doesn't. And
So while the Nickelodeon team like was responsible for designing the characters, which was like adapting them from the 3D counterparts, right? It's Titmouse's job to move them around, correct?
yes,
Okay,
yes,
cool,
exactly.
cool.
Yeah, we would get their designs and then figure out how they move, as well how they look three-dimensionally too.
Mhm.
Because I actually got a design, and design has like maybe like four angles, like, and you're like, okay, how does it look in this slightly different angle? How
Sure.
does it look like this looking like this? It was a very big teamwork as well, because we would, develop something and show to Nickelodeon and be like, hey, what do you guys think about this? And then you're like, oh yeah, looks great. Oh no, let's change this and that. So it's like, back and forth between the two until we got the hand of, oh yeah, this is how it's supposed to look like.
What was it like translating what you saw from the trailers to the show? Like, or I guess eventually when you got to see the movie too, like, how was this? I don't know. What did you take from the movie that was, I don't know, unique or different or whatever that you were able to bring into the show on a much different medium, of course?
It's not exactly the same thing, but it's kind of the same vibe where like the 3D has a very really cool like textural look into it. Look like paintings, right? Like you look at every frame, if you freeze it, it's like a really cool illustration, like
Yeah.
painted. And then we're like, cool, that's super cool, but that's not producible for a TV show, right? And we're like,
Oh, yeah.
oh man, this is so how can we emulate that? Then Nickelodeon came up with this more sketchy look into things, and then we implemented that into animation. How we can make this look cool, and then move nicely, and then as an animation director on my job at the very beginning, I would participate a lot into the pre-production process, where we would get the designs from Nick and be okay, how are we going to translate this into the digital look of the software we are using, right? So I would come in, and we were using like Tungun Harmony for the show, and then I would come in there like, okay, how can we add a pretty cool textural look to this, and then still make it look, you know, handmade, but with some extra tools that can help us out, so we don't need to keep like killing ourselves to make this work, right? So I came up with like one, like the software has like really cool line boil effect. That
Okay.
we, if we draw with like a textured line, if we apply this effect, it kind of can boils the line on whenever you decide that to boils. So I would put, since the movie has like a very spaced out timing, right? Like animation on threes and such. Like you see, that's not like super fluid. I would put those line boil effects to be moving every 8 frames. So every 8 frames or so, like 6 frames, you have the line of the characters boiling a little bit, and that gives a little bit of more life, even when the character is just standing there. So if you're just not moving at all, you have a boil on the outline of the character, making them feel more alive, and that's more like all part of pre-production step.
Are you saying
So
boil? Like the what does that mean? Like I'm so curious.
like how let me see if I have a good example. Have you ever watched a show called Hilda? Like on Netflix, there's a show called Hilda. Um,
No, forgive me.
I think there's that one. There's the new. Not sure if you have seen. There's the new Snoopy shorts. They
No.
have, yeah, both
Like,
of them
I mean,
have
is it
exactly.
like I don't know. Are you familiar with what with home movies or Dr. Katz?
Yes, yes.
Is it? I mean, obviously that's much cruder, but the
Mhm.
characters would stand still and there'd be a little jitter to them. Is it kind of like that?
Kind of like that. Ed and Eddie.
Yes.
Kind of like that same vibe. Not so drastic because that one changes very, irregular.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's the same idea done in a way where we don't need to redraw every single frame when they're just standing there.
Interesting.
Because on Ed and Eddie back then they would redraw the frames. Even in there still they would redraw like we have like a cycle. And then on this time, okay, how can we make this more producible? So we came up with this idea of like, oh, let's use the line boil effect and then keep that alive for longer and make the character, a nicer look. So what this effect does, like we draw with a textured outline on the show, like have like a very charcoal look to it.
Okay.
If you look at it, see like, oh, that looks like
Yeah, it's
textured.
rougher lines. Yeah.
And then what this node do, it gets the texture of the line and drags it to the side. So when he drags the texture inside the outline, it feels that it's moving. But if you drag a lot, you go like you're never gonna be on the same spot, right? You drag it a little bit, it's gonna be a completely different spot, and it feels like a new drawing. You feel like, oh, this feels like it's redrawing itself, but it's the exact same node, it's the exact same drawing, right? So the whole idea was to apply that in a way that's not distracting as well, because we don't want
Sure.
to be like,
Because
oh,
it can
this
be
is like
like
too much.
it can be like it can hurt. Like it can be too much, right?
Yeah, it's very subtle. And then yeah, so that was the idea how we're gonna prep that. I helped out on how the cleanup will be done as well, like how you're layering things for compositing and all the technical aspects of the pipeline. I would be helping them out on doing that sort of stuff, which was
Does the show have like a different or like a lower frame rate or something? Because it definitely seems like I don't know the words for this, but I'm because it definitely there's something there, but I don't know what I can't put my finger on it.
I I know exactly what you were talking about. So on the show, is also related to the movie too, right? Because the movie has a lot of spaced out timing. Like the timing is not like super fluid like a lot of 3D movies are, right? And then we wanted to implement that into the show as well. So it was kind of like intentional, where we space the timing in like threes and 4 frames in like in regular traditional animation, like if you watch like a Disney movie, things move on twos. Every two frames, you have like a new drawing, and then that looks very like smooth
So,
animation, right?
but tradition and so, I forget. Sorry, just so I'm clear. So, like that, in like in a Disney movie, that's 26 frames per second, right?
24. Yeah,
24.
24.
So, does that mean they move 12 times per second?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
So
got it. Okay, I'm following.
every 1 second, you have like 12 drawings, and that's how like a lot of movies are done, like Disney classic movies and such. So they're very fluid. When you have like a really fluid scene, then you have on once, which is like 24 frames drawn. You
Okay.
can see that in some cuts on Akira, like they're all animated on once. And
Okay.
looks really, really smooth, right? And then what we wanted to do on this one is to give that same textural look to the animation. So we spaced the animation on 3s and 4s, and even sometimes in every 5 frames or so, to give that same like vibe. And you have like, oh, this looks like kind of like I don't know if you know a lot of French animation, but it kind of like gives a little bit of that vibe of French timing.
Interesting.
But at the same time, we are not like letting this has like oh, let's make it look like cheap, like bad. We're adding a lot of nuance into the animation of the characters. So if you see the acting of the characters, it's very rich. It's very like.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that helps out to keep the high quality of the animation, but also if you're spacing that out, you can help us out in producing it like more friendly production wise. So we can like,
there is. I mean, the budgets are a real part of the equation. There's no right.
Yeah.
Like that's part of the process. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, because like on this show we have like a very short amount of time to do the episodes. So to make it look good, we have to find smart solutions. But then it happens that the smart solution on this case was exactly what the show needed to look cool, like to look like different from what's out there. And
the boil helps kind of like if it's on 5s or whatever, the boil kind of helps mitigate that, right? Because it doesn't die, right?
Yeah, it bridges the gap. It fills in like what's kind of like missing to feel more alive the shot itself. So we implemented that and then try to as well, like it's not only that as well. I have to say, like this sort of animation only works when you have a very skilled team working on it.
Sure.
Because if you space an animation on 3s and 4s, but it's not precisely done, it feels choppy. It feels like, oh, that animation looks a little bit stiff, right? And a lot of people don't know because they don't understand how animation works, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, they just say, oh, this looks bad.
Right. They don't know what it is, but they know they don't like it. Right.
Yeah. And it's because the spacing of that was not precisely done. What we do when we have a very skilled animator, they're gonna do like, oh, I'm gonna start moving this character on frame 1, and I'm going to stop on frame 10, and I'm gonna space this on like 3s and 4s and so. But every frame, every keyframe, and every in between is very precisely done, where our brain is going to complete that motion. So if the character moving from point A to point B, like pose A from pose B, if that spacing is not nicely done, you see like, oh, this is like flickering. But when it's like very precisely done, your brain completes whatever it's missing in betweens and feels like a really rich animation. And you're like, oh, I can't tell what it is, but if it looks really cool, even being like less like a lower frame rate. And that's the magic of like having very high-skilled artists working on a show like this. And then that happens a lot on this show because we like our animation teams. We have 2 animation teams, right? And they are really, really talented. Like some of the most talented people I've worked with.
Is this show ever move on 1s or 2s or 3 is the lowest?
We do. Like especially when we do like action shots.
So, what's the scene where it would move on 1s or 2s, and what's the scene where 5s you get away with 5s? Like what kind of?
What defines it?
Well, what kind of like? Give an example of a scene that would have 1s or 2s, and then an example of a scene that might have 5s. Generally, like is that a talking scene? Is it 5s?
Yeah, like if you have a very, very simple acting shot, then you can space that out like that. Or if you have a extremely comedic shot as well, because sometimes to make the comedy works nice, you gotta like space that out even more, depending on what kind of joke you're doing.
Oh, you just let it breathe, right?
It's more impactful. It's more like I'm gonna hold on this pose for a very long time, and then I'm gonna snap into the next one. So that gives like a comedy relief sort of timing to the action.
Sure.
And then you're seeing that animation more, and then we are not like when I say like threes and fours, we are not constantly spacing on
It
that timing.
adjusts, right?
It adjusts according to the motion. So
Got
it
it.
can start on threes and goes to fours and then end on every like moving fives, like the very accommodation of the scene, the action. And then you cushion into in five in every 5 frames or so. But then you can also from that same scene you go like super quick and you move on twos and then threes and you keep like switching between the like the frame rate, and then you can make like that more dynamic shot. So for action stuff we tend to do more, like we tend to do like more fluid animation, and it goes to like twos and threes. Rarely we move on ones, maybe if it's like as mirror we are doing, like
Okay.
a fast action. But twos and threes is what we tends to use for action shots, and then four and threes, fours, and so on. We tend to use a little bit for more acting. But if it's like a regular thing that happens a lot, if you're making a character walking from one point to another, we will never do that on fours because it feels choppy. We will try to keep on threes because it feels a little bit more complete, the
Because they're
animation, because it's
constantly moving, right?
they're constantly moving, and we don't
Right.
want that to look not a good quality, right?
But if they're chilling on the couch in the sewer, that might move on fours or fives.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
It's all about what fits for the scene, what's the intention that you have, and then what kind of like action the character is doing, what kind of like intention you have in there. Sometimes we even got to a point where there were scenes where like the animator did way too much. I'm like, oh, this looks cool, but it's going too off with the show style. So you're like, let's like remove this frame and this frame, and then it gets it works perfectly. Because if you're in a whole sequence, like as an animation director, we are seeing the entire episode, right? We are seeing like the whole
Sure.
picture. So the animators they're seeing their own scenes. They're working on their own bubble there. And then once we put all together, we need to make sure consistency is the key for keeping the episode like looking nice from beginning to end. And then sometimes when an animator, if it's a simple acting shots, and then one animator does like a super Disney looking fluid animation, when you put it like in order with different shots around it, that one shot feels off. And you're like, it's very well animated, but it feels like so off with everything else that's, so we try to keep the balance and, let's put the effort where it needs to be. And that's for, more into like crazy action stuff. And then very nuanced acting shots, because that also comes into our minds as well, where like, there's a very important shot here that's like an acting beat that needs a lot of like emotional portrayed from the character. We tend to like, hey, here we need more. We need to have like that, higher like approach to the movement of the character and the feeling, how express what they're feeling. A very good example of this is on episode 106.
Okay.
There's a sequence where, because I directed animation on that one with like the bishop, the end of the bishop arc, and then there's a sequence that she's talking about her sister, and then she's like very emotional and very like, she was just trying to make the robots to make the world a better place. And then on that sequence, if you see, there's a lot of small nuances into her acting. There's a lot of like, like what she's thinking, like how her eyes are portraying the whole action of the scene, like the intention of her speech. So there's a lot of very small nuances on that shot where you're like, oh yeah, I see here they put a lot of passion and like work into this to make it work. A lot of times it's simple things, has like eye darts when the characters are like, when you're thinking and your eyes keep like, moving from one side to another. That sort of thing. I always ask animators to add that, because it gives a lot of life to the character and shows like what they're feeling, what are they thinking, what's the emotion they're trying to show on that shot.
So there's more having moving it on twos and threes allows for more subtle emotion in important acting scenes like that.
As well, I think both styles work the same way. Like if it's on twos or in threes, and it works all the same.
Sure.
It's more like knowing when you bump up or or move down the amount of frames on the scene.
Interesting.
Like we have a little bit of more freedom and forgiveness on how like we handle a shot as well. As well with production wise, like sometimes we need to hit the deadline, and then there are some shots we cancel very easily, and in a simple way, let's go for it. And then because of the timing of the show is so like it varies so much, we have freedom to do that, and still looking into the show style and still looking pretty good. It's just like smartly done, I would say.
The sketchy look to it, comparing it to other work you've done, does the sketchy look to Tales make it easier or harder?
I would say Turtles itself, it's not an easy show.
Sure.
Overall.
Okay. Why is that?
Because the designs, if you look at the designs on Tales, it's a very big mix of organic and graphic. It's not fully graphic, but it's also not fully organic.
Can you explain what that means?
There's a lot on the art style of the show. There's a lot of straight versus curves. Nothing is extremely straight, but is not fully curved. A good example is their eyes. If you look at their eyes, it's not a perfect circle, but it's also not super sharp. It's a very nice in between being round and graphic.
Okay.
So it's very specific. It's very like how do we handle like their designs? Bryce, yeah, you did one with Bryce as well, like a podcast.
Yes.
So he's great at that. He's great at giving that like really cool mix of graphic with curves look into the characters. And then the biggest challenge of that is we have like around 60 animators working on the episodes. I have 30 on my team, and then the other animation director, Sean, has 30 on his. Keeping everyone drawing exactly the same style is the biggest challenge. Artists drawing their own style, right? Whenever they're doing a show, they tend to bring their own like way of drawing into the show. So it's our job, like Sean and mine, to put it back into the show style again. I mean, like, oh, this looks cool, but let's change this and change that. So the biggest challenge is to keep that very nice mix of graphic and organic all in the same, show with several different artists, like all drawing is like the same thing. So that's what I would say. Like it's a very complicated show art-wise, because the art's really complex. The characters have a lot of details as well. If you compare the design of Tales with Rise, it has a very different design. Rise is very graphic looking. There's a lot of
What does graphic mean in this context? Forgive me.
I would say like things are a little bit less realistic. It's a very like stylized style. So
does that mean like straighter lines, like Batman the Animated Series, or not quite?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's exactly. That stores that idea.
And what is an organic means? Like, what's an example of a very organic looking show?
A very organic looking. Let me see. Like I would say, like realistic, right? If you look at anime, there's a lot of animes that have very realistic looking.
Okay, got it.
Right.
Less like stylized, more. Okay.
Yeah, more human looking sort of thing.
I see. Okay.
If I don't look at hands in anime. Hands in anime, they're most complex designs. Like
got it.
Very realistic. They look, exactly like normal human hands. And then when you get to like simpler shows, they are going to simplify those designs to get easier and easier to draw. I'm not saying that they're easy to draw, and even like a more graphic look, but they are a little bit easier to understand. And you're like, oh, I know exactly how this shape works in a three-dimensional world. Like if you get like that shape and rotate it, and like, oh yeah, I know how to draw this in front view, back view, up, down. When it's more organic, it gets very complicated because you have a lot of like details and perspective. It's really hard to like draw stuff that's a little bit too realistic. Not even organic. I would say like realistic, right?
Okay.
But then Turtles, it's a very big mix of both. You have like the graphic side of it, and then you have the
And
more
what like
organic.
so for the turtles, like uh I hope so, I'm sorry if it's too like tedious. I'm just so curious about this.
No,
What's the of these turtles of the Tails turtles? What is the organic side of it, and what's the graphic side of it? So I can kind of like
the organic side. So once you look at the small details, like like how their chest plate looks like when you like draw them, like the top part of the chest plate, how their faces, like their overall, expressions and such, they're towards a little bit of more of the organic look. But then when you look at the closer look, when you're like, how to draw their mouths, how to draw their like nose shape, and how to draw the shells, like especially the shells, they go into more the mix of like graphic and organic, and then they are very three-dimensional, especially because we're being based on a 3D show, right?
sure.
Very three-dimensional. So to get those drawings in a three-dimensional space, like handmade, because they're all hand-drawn, right? It's really complicated. Like it's very complex to, get that looking pretty good. And that's what it makes it so like hard to do. But again, with time, we get a hang of it. Get a hand of it, and then yeah, I know how to draw this and that, and then. But it has a show overall. It's a very complicated one in the sense of like design wise. It's harder. It's pretty hard.
Is it tough for animators to stay on model, basically?
Yeah, it is because there's a very big room, like like the line between what's model, what isn't, is very like
Sure.
open. Yeah, the door is very open, and you're like, well, is this a model? Is it isn't?
Sure.
So it's more on this show. It's a lot of like what's more appealing than like
There's almost like in the film, and then I think it carries over. There's an awkwardness, and for lack of a better word, almost like a little bit of an ugliness to it. It not in a bad way, but it's just like a stylistic choice of having them be these sort of like they're not cuter turtles, right? Because we've had cuter turtles in the past. They're like there's an awkwardness to them, and I can see how like how the lines curve and all that is it is very like you can tell if a Simpsons character is on model because it's one thing, right? Like whereas this and like there's a very clear style guide. You only can do this, and they can only. But with the turtles, like there is a kind of like they shift a little bit in the show.
Yeah, and then you can go like extremely off model and still look straight, because you're doing like, I'm doing like a more forced, funny face here, and then we want it to look funny,
Sure.
and it still looks cool, and then you can do a little bit more realistic approach, and then still look right. So the door for like going what's in and off model is pretty large, so we have to go into like, what's more appealing, because the show, it's all about appeal. The drawing needs to look good, the posing needs to look strong, and then you're like, it's a more like, okay, it's a more drawing really cool drawings, like, I need to make this look like very nice if the character is posed in a very specific way, or than like, let's try to keep like a full more like a good example, like if you watch Rick and Morty, right? They're most of the time all model. Like
yeah, they're very there's one like kind of like this. It's always one thing, kind of.
Yeah, so it's a very specific way to treat it, and then Turtles is more like we go off like all the time. We're like, we're going to do a very forced perspective here and a very forced like funny face. So there's a lot of room for interpretation into it.
I'm thinking of I love like old school Looney Tunes and like how things will fall off model during a crazy gag or an action scene. It's kind of like that, right? Like the more kind of extreme thing that's going on, the more it stretches, right?
Yeah, and then we do like very like I remember on I think on episode 1 was Sean episode, and Sean is really great for that sort of thing, where like if you go like with crazy ideas, and then he's really good at adding those into his episodes. Where there's a shot, this one came from the storyboard, where Leo goes inside his shell completely, and it's just the shell falling in the stairs, and you're like, yeah, like this in a realistic, cartoon, that wouldn't work, because it, like structured wouldn't work. But we went to like a very cartoony like look into it, but we also have very realistic, I don't know if you get like 112. Sorry, 112. I say in order of production, but if you get episode 12, where we have like the fight with Goldfin against the turtles, a very realistic, like battle, like with very dynamic angles and choreography, anatomy, and such. So this show have both things. Like you can have a very cartoony thing and it still works, and you can have a very realistic one and it works as well. And that's what makes it so diverse, hard for sure, but also fun.
Do they have different dramatic effects when you do that? When it's more cartoony action scene versus more serious? Is it more like, or more is there a different dramatic effect to it?
Oh yeah, definitely. It goes all to the thing I was talking about. What's the intention of the shot, right? Why you want to do this? Like, is it like a comedy bit, or is it like, oh, it needs to look badass? Okay, let's go into the full action crazy style for it. And we mix it all. Like we have animators who do really like anime style into their fight shots, and then some others that do really cartoony like style, and then some that can mix both. We have there's an animator on Sean's team called Federico, and I think it's I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Panella, I think that's the last name, Federico Panella. Sorry, Federico, if I say it wrong. But he's really great at mixing this both like cartoony and an anime-ish look. So he can mix both things at the same time, and it's amazing. When you get a shot, and then with time, you know exactly what shot is from who. And when you are working on the show, because you see the style of that artist. On my team, even if I got to watch again, my episodes from the beginning, because it's been a while from now, I'll look at it and I'll know exactly who did the shot. I'm like, oh yeah, this scene is from this artist, that scene is from that artist, because each artist have their own touch. And that's the magic of the show. Like we bring a lot from other artists too. Like they bring their ideas, a lot of things that sometimes they're not on the storyboard, and then we ended up adding them to make it funnier or to make it cooler looking as well. So yeah, it's a very pleasureful show to work on. Challenging for sure, but at the same time, it makes us get better at what we do. Sort of thing. Like the more you work on it, the better you get.
Here's a question. So like, there's a certain spectrum of what's okay for a turtle, right? Like, and before it falls off model, are human characters different? Are there less stretch to them?
No, that I think we treat like all the same way, but I think like we can be cartoony with them as well. We can be like more actiony the same way, but turtles, because they're like not humans, we can push them a bit more.
Okay, that's what I was basically wondering. Yeah. Like, because you can't push April that far, right?
No, definitely not.
Right.
that's one that where if you get her too like far, that definitely is not gonna fit for the show. Like,
right.
She more on her model. She needs to look cute as well, because she's very cute looking. And that's the whole like. I really love, like, there's a character that I really love drawing, which is Angel.
Oh yeah.
Angel was like my favorite to draw. Her and Bishop as well, because I was fortunate enough to direct animation on the episodes they show up. Like I did episode 6 with Bishop, and then episode 8 with Angel and Genghis Frog. And that was a delight, you know, like that was so cool to draw them. Because Angel is, I don't know, I like her because she's so angry. Like she looks angry all the time. But not only angry, but like badass looking. You know, like she's a nice mix of like, oh, like I see the hint of like anime-ish inspiration on this character. So yeah, but again, we couldn't push them too much in the sense of go off model, but you still can make like dynamic shots with them, make them look cool and such.
Does the sketchiness affect how a character moves? Like, does it affect the animation?
It does because like a lot of times we can make some really cool like smear drawings as well.
Okay.
You know, you can like there's a lot of artistic freedom into how we animate them because we are a little bit more loose into the art style, right?
Sure.
So it still needs to look very appealing for sure. But we can play around with it more. You know, there are shots, I remember some shots where like we would do, again, goes back to the mix of cartoony and anime and stuff, where we would do like a character needs to move down really fast. We leave their eyes back and then they move first. You know, the eye stays behind and then we move them back again.
Oh, I love that. That's very that's very old Looney Tunes. Like that's
yes, exactly. Yeah, so it's nice because we can add that sort of stuff into it as well. So it's a very big mix of cartoony and then more anime, and it's a mix of everything, sort of thing.
So you're the animation director, and that means you oversaw the animation on half the episodes. You said, right?
Yes. The even episodes.
Okay, cool. I'm curious for the first half of the series, the Bishop episodes, are there certain sequences that you wanted to call out as being particularly, like you were particularly proud of them, or they were particularly hard?
Oh, definitely. The Bishop ending fight where we have
the robot, sure.
Robot. That was really cool because we ended up doing 3D. You know, like that robot is a 3D element, like a object, the Bishop robot, like the big one.
Oh, right. Yes. I think Andrea mentioned that. Yes.
It does not look 3D at all.
No, I'm good at like, I'm pretty. I don't have all the vocabulary, but I'm usually pretty good at spotting it. I remember when I was watching when I was watching Little Mermaid and that 3D ship comes in, I'm like, that's, you know what I mean? Or I remember when I was like watching Futurama early on, and occasionally they would have a 3D bender, and I'm like, oh, a drawing can't move that way. Like I usually can see it. I didn't see it in that show.
No, that was awesome, man. Like, cause exact same thing you said. Like when we decided to do in 3D, because like the first reason why it's because it's a robot. And robots are solid objects, right? And then in animation, solid objects are really hard to keep control of volume. Like if you're like animating like I don't know, even like a complex gun, if you like move it from one side to another to control every line of that gun and how the spacing between the shapes is on every single frame, it's really hard, especially if you're adding a curve to the motion.
Like cars, spaceships, like things like the inorganic. Now, why? I mean, I think I know, but like, why is it 3D animation in this context work better on non-living creatures things as opposed to living things?
It's exactly because of that. Like, because you have this non-organic things that needs to be consistent in their shape.
Right.
They need to move it three-dimensionally, right? They need to like rotate and look like
and they need to look perfect all the time. Like a car can't change its shape.
Exactly.
Unless you're going for something very specific, like a Rocko's Modern Life or something.
Yeah. If you're like cartoony on that sense, right?
Right.
But then for controlling that to having that amount of control, it's a lot of precision that you need, you know, and even having a lot of precision that might still not look perfect because you're controlling everything hand drawn.
Sure.
And I'm I'm amazed by Japanese animators who do like mecha, like Gundam and stuff like that, because like that's like uh, witchery for me. I'm like, oh, this is like
Oh,
insane.
sure.
And then the organic one, since again, 3D nowadays is getting much better and doing like emulating the 2D look, right?
Sure.
But the organic one goes exact the same as like live action. Like if you get live action and watch like uh, a 3D scene that is trying to emulate real people, and the first thing you're gonna notice is the mouth movements, and you're like,
Right.
oh, that looks uncanny. And like that looks like
Yeah.
not
Like the Superman thing
real.
with Paul Hain. Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing with 2D animation. When you see a 3D character trying to emulate 2D, you feel like, oh, that feels a bit stiff, feels like uncanny as well. And you
Sure.
immediately know. So the whole thing with the 3D Mac, like the Bishop Mac, was exactly this. I'm like, hey, the only way to do this has to be 3D, but I do not want it to look 3D. I do not want it to be like people look at, oh, that's uncanny. Like that's like, I
Yeah, like
see.
it doesn't fit.
So the whole deal was we had a very like big teamwork into making how I would approach to make this, right? So my main like how it started was we got the design from Nick, and then I got that design, and then we went to like a 3D studio trying to like, okay, and we need to transfer this design into like a 3D model. And then they would start the process of like modeling it and then making like textures and such. And then they would send us like the process. And I would look at it and be like, okay, cool. The modeling looks cool, but it looks extremely realistic. So they would model every single part of that robot, like every single detail, like every line inside of it. And then I'm like, okay, to make it look 2D, we need a better like direction in the sense of how we are gonna build it at first. So we invited our art director at Titmouse, Chris Thompson, who's like awesome art director as well, and then myself. It's like we're both giving notes to the 3D studio on how they should model and how they should texture the robot. So I would give notes on how, like my first notes were, for example, when I saw their first version of the robot was very symmetrical and very perfect. So my first note was
This
like,
world isn't symmetrical at all.
exactly, like my first
Right.
word was, hey, a
Even the
cube.
buildings aren't symmetrical.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's very
Right.
like asymmetrical and very like stylized, right? So I drew like a box, a cube, and then I drew another one that's a cube as well, but all deformed with every single surface being in a different size. I mean, like whenever you guys are modeling it, I showed the perfect cube, like we don't want this, and then I showed the same cube but like deformed in a way where like no, each size has a different dimension, where you have that more stylized cube. We want something more like this, where nothing is perfect, everything has some imperfections into it, so you can have a more hand draw like look into the design. So they reworked the modeling of the robot to get that vibe, while Chris would give notes to them on how they should texture as well, because they were like modeling every single detail on the robot. And then when you do it, you create a lot of depth into parts, right? Like, oh, the chest is all modeling like every single line. Whenever you rotate that in 3D, you're gonna see a lot of depth into it. But if we're doing in 2D, we're not gonna see all of that depth. We're gonna see like more like it's drawn, right? So the way to do that modeling is like, you guys need to texture the outlines, like these details, the inside details, just treat them as flat images and project them on top of the 3D, like the basic shape. So that helped us out into making a little bit less 3D looking modeling.
It looks more
and
flat.
Yeah, a little bit more flat.
Yeah.
Still three-dimensional, but less, realistic. And then from there, we worked on having they would send like steps on it, and it would be like sending extra notes and how everything works. And then once it's done, all the noting process was done. we start the animation process. And that's when that's where you see when something is 3D, even if it's the model is looking great, the textures are looking cool. That's when you see when something is 3D, because it gets too different from the show, like animation look, right?
Yeah, sure.
So
it moved like that, right?
Exactly. So my main thing was like they wanted to initially do like based on the boards, and I'm like, no, let's do reverse engineering on this. So I got two animators to do rough animation to the robot first, so I could control the timing of it, how it would move, like, and then we broke the animation apart into like 3s and 4s and spaced out, so the mech would move like exactly how the characters move and not being too smooth, right? So we would, but the difference is, and you're like, oh, a lot of people think, well, if your guys are animating in 2D, why don't just do all in 2D? The difference is, the catch is, the animators would do just blocks of the robot, not draw the details and keep volume. No, just the silhouette of the robot doing the motions, and then the 3D would rotoscope that, keeping the model consistent. So they, like, what would take a lot of time for animators to do handmade, it's just like, oh, do the rough here, quick rough. Oh, we did this very quickly. It looks great. The timing is working great. Then the laborious part, where we'll be like adding all of those details, is all 3D. So we don't need to draw any of the internal details of the robot.
That was a question I had too. Was so when you guys do a mix of 2D and 3D, I was wondering what goes in first. Is it you put in the 3D and you animate around it, or is there a stand-in and then the 3D is an overlay?
Yeah, the 3D goes over, like we do like a blocking first. We rough it out, the animation, send to 3D, and then 3D rotoscope that motion, and then send it back. So what happened? We did that whole process. I and I would give notes to the artists, to the animators, and be like, oh, let's push this perspective even more. Let's change this timing. Like making it look dynamic. Send to them, and then they would send back the process. So their first submissions were kind of like, they were following it, but the model was too realistic. So you wouldn't be able to get exactly the same push in perspective as the 2D. Because in 2D, like, we fake perspective. We draw it, hand draw. So if I wanna do like a character punching a screen like this, I'm hand drawing that punch so I can push this arm really big on screen. But it's not realistic. If I'm using like a 3D model, if I do this is going to be super realistic. This arm is going to be like super small, farther from the screen. Even if I put close to the screen, proportions are not going to be the same because we're faking it in 2D. It's not the same perspective.
So do you have to be wider?
Yeah, you have to break it apart. So what my notes for the 3D, when they sent their first versions and it was on top of 2D but not actually matching, I was like, let's go back and then break your rig apart. So I want the arms to be detachable. I want the shoulders to be separate. I want that part. So what they could do in a 3D environment, they would
want a giant fist. It's because the arm is no longer attached to the fist.
Exactly. So they would get that arm that's close to the camera and then make it bigger, and then the back would still be the same size. So it's detached, so you can fake perspective like we do in 2D.
Interesting.
Draw that perspective, right? And then after that, they managed to hit exactly how our 2D was. Like the perspective was working perfectly, like all the motion was working great. And then they sent us there was one step before that I forgot to mention, is I also requested them to have a line boil on the robot as well. So every frame it moves, the texture moves the exact same way how we did with the characters, they do with the as well. So it feels like a new drawing. And then they finish all that step, send that back to us, and then the render just looks like a 2D animation. Like you look at it and I'm like, yeah, this looks like handmade.
So like, guys, I did not catch it. Like, you really.
Then we mixed like we added like 2D effects on top of it. We drew the shadows on the ground to make it like more blend it better with the 2D. Well. And then we also added some extra drawings. Like once in a while, I would go there on top of the animation and draw a smear on top of it, and to make it like blend better the 3D with the 2D, and then the characters with the robot and such. So it was a pretty elaborated process to make it. That turned out looking really cool because most people don't know, like they don't notice that it was like a 3D asset at all. So it was really.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. I was gonna ask you if there's a sequence from the second half of episodes that you wanted to call out.
The second half, I would say, oh yeah, like I mean, the last episode is one of the coolest ones.
You got both big fight episodes. Like you got both finales, frankly.
Yes, yes, that was hard because you're getting like 2 finales in one season. But it was cool, man. Like it was like that episode was really complex in the sense of like the action on it is very like intense, right? But it was really nice to do it as well. We got like the good thing was we got Kevin Molina. I don't know if you know his name. Is a very like extremely excellent storyboard artist that does really crazy action stuff. He did a lot of like really good fight shots from Rise as well. Like you see a bunch of Rise crazy fights.
Great fight scenes in that show. Yeah,
he storyboarded a bunch of them. They have a lot of really great storyboarders on that show as well, and as well on Tales. And then he did on Tales as well that last fight, like the 2 sections. The first one was the one with the River Gang coming out of the museum, like they just got the Pearl, and then they fight right in front of the museum. And then the last one is the fight against Goldfin. That was really, really cool. So yeah, I really like that. Like the entire episode, like the whole section is really nice. We got to do some really cool stuff. Like, you know what? One really cool thing we did, because like as an animation director, I also participate on comp dailies. And I can give like, you know, like feedback as well. Of course, it always comes from the comp soup, the final word, you know, because we don't want to step on anyone's toes. And then we always like, oh, what do you guys think about this or that? And then they let us know if it's producible as well, right? Because, you know, I'm not the one supervising the team, the comp team. And then, but yeah, as animation directors, we tend to participate on that and give feedback as well, and then ideas and stuff like that. And then on that fight, there's a shot where you see Splinter, once the Splinter comes in to protect them, and then there's a clash between Splinter and Goldfin, and then the water just moves up like a shockwave. The first version of that shot in comp, it looks cool. It was looking pretty nice. The compositor like did a great job, like Annie. And then they clash, and I was like, it looks nice, but I think it's missing some flourish to it. I think we can add a little bit more. So once we were in dailies, I told him, hey, well, can we like do like a dome around them, like whenever they clash, like and you go like that dome effect. And then I drew like a dome, how that should look like around them. And then I told her, go there, watch Matrix Revolutions, Neo versus Agent Smith, whenever they're under the ring, and then they clash, and then there's like a impact, like water effect that, you know, a dome warping effect that happens. And I told her, like, you don't need to watch the movie. Like, just that one shot already works. You know, I'm not gonna make you go through this. But then, and she's like,
and make it so you watch a Matrix sequel. That's not fair.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, oh, I'm not gonna, you know, it's not a great movie, but
you make them watch the original. That's fine. The sequels, that's punishment.
But I was like, okay. Since she went and watched it. And then the other day she came with, the scene already looks amazing. You know, like she added exactly that like warping effect that warps the rain. And then it looks super cool. Like the rain slows, like whenever they clash behind them, the rain's going like really slow, falling really slow. And then the effect is coming out. And that's the whole thing about like collaboration, like a project that, you know, people collaborate with each other so much, right? You can bring new ideas and things that sometimes they weren't on the storyboard or things that you're like, oh, you think it's gonna look cool, and people are excited about it because like she was also excited to make it work, right? So yeah, it's
I was talking to Christopher Yost. We got talking about the Goldfin fighting. I think it was him. He was comparing it to Yoda versus Dooku in Star Wars Episode 2.
yes.
Was that a reference you had to turn to as well?
I don't think we got that reference. I mean, the storyboards are really well established on that.
Okay, so maybe that was in the boarding process. I got it.
Yeah, on the boarding process, they might have gotten that reference. Because the
Interesting.
storyboard was like, because that was the difference, right? Like, because like on 106, the storyboard were actually more like storyboards. You know, like you
Okay.
got poses in there, but then the animator is gonna figure out how the action works and timing and everything else. On that episode, like the episode 12, it's pretty much the storyboard set up the most of the action. You know, like they already figured out like timing, how things are gonna be. We did like polish things, you know, like let's put a bit more frames here, let's add a bit of more curves or this and that. But the essence was all there, you know, was all like figured out already. And on the Bishop episode, we had to figure out much more. Like we have okay, how we're gonna plan this timing here, that shot, and
Why
such.
the difference? Out of curiosity.
Sorry.
Why the difference? Out of curiosity.
Why or
like, why was it tighter on the Goldfin one versus looser on the robot one?
That's more like a Nickelodeon
okay,
question.
Okay,
I wouldn't have access to why like those are different, but I would say like on my experience, it's more like what they want for the episode itself, and then also the storyboard artist. Like they got like Kevin, which is like, he's known by doing a lot on his boards and like adding literally almost like doing rough animation into it.
Okay.
And he's great at it. So, and that was one of the points. But yeah, that's more like a Nick question.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm curious about the four turtles. Because the difference is in their weapons, is there one turtle that's like the most fun to animate and one that's like the least fun?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's more personal, like a
sure,
preference.
But I mean, like, is there something like that you can do more with nunchucks than size or something like that?
Yeah, that's more a preference of mine. But the whole thing is, I love like long weapon like fights. You know, like I've always seen them being animated, and then wow, that looks so cool. And then Donnie has the staff, which is like a long weapon, and then
is it because you can force the perspective more?
You can make like martial arts like movements, like look really cool. Okay. You spin them around, and then you do like a bunch of like different like attacks and such. It's so cool that again, being an animation director, we had to do so much, and then there's so many departments we have to deal with daily, so many artists we have to talk to, notes and stuff like that we got to do, that we don't have a lot of time to animate. But the long weapon fights are so cool that I'm like, I need to animate this. So I ended up separating a whole like 10 seconds from episode 4 where Donnie fights the Mechazoid.
On the subway, myself. Right?
Yeah, on the subway.
Yeah. I was just watching that clip on your Instagram.
Yeah, so I had to separate that to myself so I could animate it cool. Because I'm like, I want to. Like, this is way too cool. I can't let that pass. Of course, I had to like find time to make it work, because we were busy. But it was worth it because it was super fun to animate. I loved doing that section. A little bit of that fight because the animators did an amazing job on the entire episode. But I was like, no, I need to, because Donnie is one of my favorites because of that, weapon wise. And I think Leo too. Like Leo is pretty cool because of the swords, and you can do a lot.
Also long, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and you can do like a lot of choreography with them. I mean, all of them are cool. Like nunchucks are cool too. But like my preference, that would be like Donnie and Leo.
So, and not to say Raphael isn't, but like, is his a little more less interesting to animate for you because it's smaller and rigid weapons?
No, I mean he's still interesting to animate.
I
But
just mean less than the other two. That's all. I don't mean
yeah,
like he's boring. But yeah.
choreography wise, yeah, choreography
Okay,
wise, I would say I have more ideas. I have more like, oh, I can do
interesting.
this, I
Sure, sure,
can do
sure.
that. But man, there are some animators on the team. They kill it animating Raph. Because Raph, he's a cool character to animate because of his anger.
It's a
He's so
brawler,
angry.
right? Yeah.
She's so angry that everything has a lot of energy and an impact, and it's very like aggressive. And we have some like there's an animator called Maisie. Uh, she kills like anytime she gets shots with like Raphael, she does an amazing job. Like there's another one from my team as well. It's called Joanne. Like those artists, like you can see they're having fun whenever they get Raphael
Mm.
to do. I didn't get to do a lot of stuff with Raph because Sean, the other animation director, got the episodes with him. Like he got like
Oh, the
episode
heavier
2.
rap episode. Sure. Okay.
So he got Raph to do in there, and then he got like episode 5 as well because they're all 5 of them fighting a bishop, and then there's a lot of Raphael fighting on that one as well. And he had like a shot that I love less as well. And then there effects artist Gwen, she's like amazing. Like on this episode is the Raphael one, like the 2 is when he's like dreaming. And then there's like a giant Megazord that pops in, and
Yes.
he's
Yes. Yes. Okay. Yep.
all like there's an Japanese animator called Takeshi Koike.
Okay.
We has a lot of that black and white look to
Okay.
his style. And I believe that might have been I'm not sure, but I think that might have been an inspiration for it. Like Red Line, like anime called Red Line. There's like every like really heavy blacks on their like silhouettes and shadowy, like black shadows.
Okay.
And then she did this shot where the robot comes in from the ground, and then there's a whole explosion, very textural looking effects. And I'm like, man, this looks so cool. And I was jealous. This is not my episode. Damn it. Yeah, no, they did an amazing job on that one.
Does Michelangelo's spinning chucks allow for like a lot of flourish?
Yes, yes. I got a lot of Mikey as well
Okay.
because episode 3 and 8, which is like the episode 3 is the one that he's alone, right? Like that's when Rod shows up. It's
Got
like
it. Yep.
he
Yep. 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 Yep.
Rod. That was pretty cool. We did like that. That was actually my very first episode on the
Did you
show.
do the one when they're in the bodega, Mikey in the bodega?
Mikey and the
Is that one of yours episodes? It's
yeah,
him and Lee, the eel.
yeah, that episode 8. Yes.
Okay, yeah, that one. I feel like that something about the way that episode was very tight, really beautifully animated. I that might be my favorite one, and I don't really know why, other than to say it just goes really well.
You are not the first person to say that.
Mm.
You really like 108, and I really love that one too, especially because we have Angel in that one, like
Oh, sure,
shining
yeah.
a lot. We have Kane on that one. She doesn't say a lot, but like she's a really cool character to draw as well. And Lee was really awesome, like overall
Sure.
to animate. Because of like her shifting personality is so fun, like we could go from like angry to like, oh really, and then angry again, and you're like, like it's super cool to do that shifting animation. So I had a lot of fun working on that one too. And they have it all, right? They have like kind of like mystery, and then like action, comedy. It's a really, really fun episode. And I again because I did literally like the most episodes with Mikey, he's like one of the favorite ones in terms of how to animate because we got so used to him. I know exactly how he acts and how he would be portrayed on screen. We know about all of them, right? But then since this episode, the characters we get to do the most, you get more attached
Sure,
to
yeah.
it. How to like approach them, like like with your eyes closed, and I'm like, oh yeah, I already know how we can do this one.
It's very chill energy to this Mikey.
Yeah, it's very fun. Like he's very like funny, as well. His relationship with Rod is always very funny as well too.
Yeah,
Like
I love
it's like
pitching do this. All that's great. Yeah.
yeah. No, Rod is very funny as well. Like I really like whenever he's on screen, because they did a really good job on the writing for him.
Man, I appreciate you going into all the details in this. I just love this stuff. So thank you for doing this. This is great.
No problem, man. I'm sorry if I mumbled a little bit
No, dude,
because
not at all. And like I said, I just love getting in the weeds in this stuff. I find it super interesting. So,
yeah, no, I love talking about animation overall. It's always nice. It's being, again, as I said, great working with such a huge amount of talented people in both ends, right? Like the Nickelodeon team, they have like amazing artists on that end. They're very creative as well, which is really nice to work with. And then on our side too, where we have like all of super talented artists in the studio, some of the most talented people I know, like from all departments, like background, compositing, animation, cleanup, like everyone is doing, and they're doing it with love too, because they're fans of the show. They love turtles and they want to, make it look cool. So it's very nice to be able to talk about this and like get more people knowing the show and talking about it.
oh, my last question for you, and I ask this of everybody, is who's your favorite turtle and why?
Okay, on this show, again, that's because I've got to do a lot of him. It's Mikey.
Okay.
Like we've got to work a lot on his episodes. He's very easy for us to handle as well because he's very funny and very like I wouldn't say naive. It can be a bit naive, but it's very like kind. He's like a kind.
Yeah, yeah. He's a turtle
Uh,
with the most heart to him. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's have a lot of heart, and then it's nice to being able to do something with like a franchise that has characters that are so beloved by everyone, and then being able to do again like we do like what like was 103, 108, and then what else? And then he have a lot of participation in other episodes too. So be able to do episodes with your favorite character is even cooler. You're like, oh man, that's
Sure.
exactly
Yeah.
what I do. Like the character that I want to have. So yeah, Mikey's my favorite one on
Awesome.
this.
All right,
But
man.
all of them are cool, by the
Oh
way.
yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I just want to tell people where to find you too on Instagram. It's Douglas dot Azevart.
Is it?
And, uh,
Yes, that part. Yeah.
yeah,
And then there's also the website too.
please, yeah.
Uh, yeah, let me actually. This you're gonna find silly, but I forgot my website. What's my website again? Douglas. It's oh yeah, it's exactly the same names. It just doesn't have the dot. So it's same as Instagram without the dots. Like Douglas AZEVART.com, like as of art
Cool.
.com.
And you've got some cool turtle stuff on your Instagram I've been going through. So anyway, it's love the show and I really enjoyed talking to you. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I hope you have a great night.
Good. Take care.
Bye.